Hello, welcome back to another episode of our Unreal Engine rewrite of Mega-lo-Mania. So we're going to pick up from where we were last stream, which was yesterday afternoon. So we were working on a option screen, a kind of new game thing, but I wasn't particularly keen with how it was working out, particularly in relation to multiplayer or multiplayer with multiple beyond 4 players or more than 4 players. So switched over to look more at the menu and the kind of process of getting into the game. So we had a number of the buttons working. We sorted out the player select, but that's not quite right in the alignment of things, but it's got the basic principle there, the basic information, but it is also a bit too centered. Which one would that be? New campaign. So just need to reduce the padding effectively. It has not changed anything because they're not spacing out. Nonetheless, so we've got the basic main menu, we've got the skirmish button that doesn't go anywhere. I think the options button doesn't work, but the quit does. So I'm going to head towards more the kind of completing the menus somewhat. Which one do we want? The main menu. So I think for the skirmish, I was thinking that we would end up with a number of other options. So what I'm going to do is just duplicate the main menu and call that the skirmish menu. By duplicating it, we've got a lot of the logic already done. So the quit button will become the back button, and we'll have a so I think we'll have a single player one, so call that single player. Second option will be post game, and the final one will be join game, and we'll remove the skirmish and the options buttons. So I think we have a spacer. There's a title here. That one filled. Don't actually want one at the top, I don't think. So if we do that for that menu and we do it for the main menu, so we don't want one at the top, but that one there to fill. And the skirmish button. Already loads the skirmish menu. So we just need to tie that into our level blueprint. And then on the skirmish menu we will have to tie up the buttons. So we need to rename the variables. This one is on single player, post game, join game, and back. So we want to use the event, the call on menu change event, to take us back to the main menu in that case. we need to just tie up the other 3 options in a moment. Just make sure we can move into the skirmish back. Probably because I don't tie up that event, forgot to tie up the event. That one. So as I said before, it'd be good to have somewhat of a base class here and a generic function to handle this, so I didn't have to bind to it in each time. But work on that a bit later on. Should be able to put us back now. Yep. And the skirmish menu doesn't need the onload game part. I think actually we want to has to. I don't think it does. I think you could potentially host a game that's been saved, doing it that way. But if you load a game, you're loading it a single player game. Although it is odd that the single player option is here for a skirmish, but the load game for a skirmish would be in the other place. So maybe menus need to be slightly bit more rearranged. But really trying to just aim to get to this single player, and we can incorporate the options we started before. Maybe peel them back a little bit to kind of where we were. So that's in here. So it's options, selected character. That's just a layout, so we don't actually use that one, so I'm just going to get rid of that. So they're all kind of the main menu, so I'm going to have a new folder for, I'll just call it components. And our map can go into there. I don't think I want to keep that, so I'm just going to take the options. And the options are actually my kind of skirmish, new game, single player type thing. So skirmish, single player setup. Actually, we'll do it. Yeah, that'll be fine. And we want to change the enum. Three new values, so we'll have skirmish, single player. Host and join, gives us all the options that we need. So now we need to just tie that up. Some of them are a bit bigger than before, so just move that over. So for the single player one, we just need to create our new widget, and that will be our single player setup. And we'll have its own events. So we're not going to worry about the is host, because we're going to basically do a separate screen for hosting a multiplayer game, I think, which may be the same screen later on, but we'll worry about that a bit later. So I just want to really focus on getting back into the game logic, rather than working on the menus too much. So we're going to just add a horizontal box for our start button, and add another button in there. So we just make a back button basically to get us back to the main menu. So with this, I think the order of this is generally okay. Maybe that way round would be a little bit cleaner. So we do use, I did create this new widget for the display of the characters. That was to go along with having the ability to select many in a multiplayer environment, but I'm not going to do that, as I said. So I'm going to drop back in our 4 images for the actual characters and tie them up like we had before. Let's find the bit where we create those characters. There we go. Don't want that one. I think what we'll do. Oops. Go on. Over here. We'll just copy the. Just keep the old one around just in case I need to refer back to it. So yeah, we don't want the create character widgets. Get rid of them. So we'll just tie this up basically as we've had it before. This will be character red image. Maybe we'll just do the actual names. Caesar. Don't actually have anywhere in here that I've actually mentioned the names as names again. Oh, I do on the widget, don't I? That'll be a quicker way of doing it. That one. I thought that was wrong. So we just need to tie the click events, and once we've got the click events, we have our event for our selected character. That still exists, I think. Thought it did. On change character, that's the one we wanted. So it won't take very long to tie all these back up again, and basically get this screen back to effective functionality that we already had before. So to say, we're not going to worry about anything to do with the host either. It's purely going to be a single player scenario. Game state. Won't worry about the game state either. So I think all of this can go. Yeah, the only thing we used to do in the tick was handle the character. Because we needed the character to dynamically update. So we set, yes, we did the setting. After the event, we changed it so we set it after the event, but I think we need to put it back in here. So populate the island, set the selected option for the island, set the selected option for the opponents, which we will default to 1. Don't know where these went. So see the image we don't want, character container we don't need anymore, so the character container we can turn off. Back button, we need to tie that up. The actual button part of it we need to tie up. Clicked for that. Start game I think is already tied up anyway. Yep. Minimap slot's fine. All the images are okay, we'll deal with them in a moment. Opponent's combo box. Yep. So that one needs to be the island combo box. So when we change the island, we want to set the island here. And then call the render map. Don't actually need to pass it through, do we? Thinking about it. set it there for the island combo, which will come down here, which we'll call that. So here we don't need to set it. That should be fine. So we'll deal with the change of character in a moment. Changing the opponents is just as simple as, I think it's just setting that option again, isn't it? Oh no, that is changing the option. We don't want to do that. So yeah, so we're setting the opponents, we just set the local variable. Don't think there's anything we need to do about that. Clicking the start. So we just need to change character part. I don't think we need that. Do need the map. Red. So drop all the images into an array so we can manage them. So we're going to start by changing the opacity to 0.2. So we just want to do that in the event tick instead. So once we've set them all to semi-see-through, we just need to set the right one to fully opaque. Single player buttons disabled. That will be because I copied it from the other main menu. So single player doesn't tie up. Should work now. Yep. That means the default character is already set. Default island doesn't need to be set. Opponents is 1, location should be 0. So on the change character, we just simply have to set the character. Yep. So we've got that back, except for my final one. Again. So I need to populate my list of maps, which I did have, to move things around. It's fine. So we just need to update our start location icon and we change the character. Forgot how we did that before. Set castle. One selected sector changed. So that's the event we call. Yeah, so that's what we need to call there. And we change the character. Call it again. Yep, that should be that. Blue does not work. Madcap. Map cap. Don't have that event. On change menu. So we need to go back to the skirmish menu in this case. Should allow us to get back. Okay. So we just need to make sure that if the start location is not equal to 0, in that case why I think it should be an enumeration for the character. Stop spelling mistakes or typos causing problems. Okay, so that's all the same now. Pretty much as we had it before. To bind to the click of the start. Do it that way instead. So now when we click the start game button, come over to here, so we just need a new function here. So at the moment we're passing all 4 variables down. The name of the island, the name of the character, the opponents, and the start location. Basically what we did before was we just put all that into the game instance. We have all the variables there in the game instance. So within this function, going to call the macro because that will convert it for us. Although to the wrong one actually, so let's not do that one. At least not at the moment. So we called it the New World game instance at the moment. Nope. That one twice. Then on the game instance we just need to set all the values. And then once we've set all the values, we want to open level the game level. So we're going to call this the MLM game. Obviously that's not going to exist just yet, but that will keep it separate from the rest. Okay, so that failed simply, or should have failed simply because we didn't have the game. We'll sort out that in a moment. Yep, so that loaded okay. So because we don't want to have to go through all the menus every time we start, now we know that the island is going to be stored here. What we can do is set some defaults. So when we go to skirmish and single player we don't see anything, but it's just as if we'd set that. Our start location needs to be 6. Just for now to make that work. And then in the island, in the game, we will edit this one. We had a display game options, yeah, so we'll use this. Oh, I think we already had it there. So in our MLM game blueprint, we will very quickly create the widget called display game options, add that to the viewport. Now if we play that directly we see the defaults we've put in, and if we too far, nope, where's it gone? That one. If we then jump into our main menu, play that one. We go into skirmish, single player. We'll pick this a different map, different opponents, and we'll go for blue instead. You can see that those values work. So we're now able to kind of just jump into a game quickly and jump into a game with specific options. So we're going to focus on trying to get the actual game part working, trying to take into account as much of the multiplayer caveats as possible, but hopefully just trying to iron out some of the more game logic that's not going to be affected by multiplayer too much. Let's see what happens if we do it this way. Yep, good. And now jump straight into the game. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is try and not click that button. I basically implement it with dedicated server enabled so that I can do as best as possible to not add kind of game logic to the clients effectively. So that will at least mean that the code that I do isn't going to be broken for multiplayer completely. So it wasn't that long ago since I was working on all of this, try and get this in a position of somewhat playable, but I split it between the MLM player controller that was the original and the test player controller, which was my kind of second attempt. Oops. So we have two game modes as well. We have the test game mode and basically the original game mode that I was working on. I think that's because I tried to launch it. I did actually build it. It is actually running over here. Not that it does much, all that work that it put into it. Can't even close it now. Okay. Okay, so game mode in the test sector, which was kind of the closest to playable that I got, basically just tries to assign a colour to the player controller. We know that when we start we have all the stuff that we want in our New World instance. So I think we're gonna some of these we're gonna use, some of them we are not. start. So we'll move them all out of the way so I won't get confused on what's what. Take a few minutes for it to move so many files in one place. A bit longer than I expected. So once that's done, I can then create the game mode again and just kind of start fresh with those components, but obviously trying to take what I've got in the very original and the most up-to-date version to make something that kind of makes some sense. So we're going to have the level actually create the sectors for this map. It seems like a suitable place to put it. Should have some more generic progress for this process so that can see how fast it goes a bit easier. It's just going to take a little bit longer. Didn't realise I shouldn't have moved the sprites. To be fair, the sprites didn't have to move because the sprites are generic and work with everything. I will obviously move them back, but I'll move them back out a bit later on. Don't think there's a way to stop it working now, and if I do, I don't know what state it's going to be in. Another minute or so. So by calculating the sprites, I ended up moving a whole lot of stuff that I didn't necessarily need to move out the way. And the sprites is where all the time is being taken up by. There's quite a lot of sprites. So moving all those sprites inevitably wasn't really necessary. This is taking much longer than I wanted it to. Hopefully it's almost done, but again there's no progress when it's doing this step of the process, so I think it's done all the sprites now, so it's just doing the last couple of directories. There we go. So hopefully yeah, so aside from the actual directories which have been left around, everything else has been moved. Okay, so we want to start with our game mode again. Can't really deal with having two of the same. So the game mode's going to deal with any kind of game setting related stuff, but obviously it outlines the primary blueprints we need, and so we're not going to create the widget anymore. In the begin play we will create the actors for the map. Now the actors that we're going to use I think are going to be our sector actors. I think this one was okay. I think this one worked okay. Compare it with the slab. Yeah, so we'll base it off the sector, because we don't want the sector as pawn, I don't think. I think I looked at that. Oh no, I did. That's what the test was working with, wasn't it? To possess the sector. Yeah, and that made some sense. So it's definitely the pawn that we want to use. So we're going to yeah, I think what we'll do, again, to try and keep the old and work on the new, we'll copy it into our game directory. And then we'll just call that the MLM sector. So there's probably bits and pieces that we don't need from this. We'll just see where we are with it once we've got it in place. So we don't need the spawn army stuff. I'll just get rid of that. All the advanced tech level stuff should be okay. Don't know why the self-reference isn't working anymore. Where are we here? Spawn building. Nothing in the tick. Let's just get rid of that one for now. So we leave the construct building, destroy building, construction completed stuff. Is owner we're okay with. Let's see where we are with that. We've still got all these references to sector that's not working. Don't even know where that one is. Let's take that out. I just have to fix up. Okay, so the building is referencing the other things. Spawn building. Disconnect that, should clear those errors. Yep. So within the level blueprint itself, we need to spawn the actors for the map. So we know the map's in the instance. Or the island. Island is what we want. So a number bit of information about the island that we'll keep there. Particularly interested in the epoch for the start epoch of the sectors plus the biome. We'll capture the error just in case something goes wrong. So if we find the island okay, we need to use a different data table. The sectors, yes. To get the sectors. That one. So we need all the names of the sectors and iterate over those. And then each row. And then if that is the same name as this one, we'll spawn the sector for it. So the epoch will come from the island. Oops, way too far. Just need to figure out how that slab gets initialized. It's called render sector on it. So this doesn't actually care about the biome at this point, but will do eventually. Okay, so I think we need to call slab. So we should be able to call the render on that. Unless it's not that. It's a child actor component, isn't it? So we need to get child actor cast it to the slab for a long-winded process, and then we can render the sector. So I think what we did before, we did that after the fact, so that we've got all the sectors in place. So the sector does need to know its location. I think this one doesn't at the moment, but we'll put that in there. So we are going to need to know. I mean, realistically, we're going to probably need to know all of that information. And there's some kind of marker. No. So when we actually spawn the buildings on our sector, we're going to have to spawn them based on the location of this structure. this structure also contains the resources that that sector has. So it would kind of make sense to pass that structure into the actor instead. I guess the only annoyance is you can't pass a variable into an actor without defining it as a variable. Can't define a constructor argument. Kind of constructor argument would be nice to do that with. Okay, let's move on though. We don't really care where the buildings go for now. They can all go in the same place for every sector for all it matters. What we do care about is what the epoch is, so we know what building level to display, and what level location is, so we know where to start the player. So once we've spawned all the actors, we can get them all again. We can use that array to figure out what types they are. I think we have in our library code. Don't know where I put it now. So we do need to set the location of the actors. For all intents and purposes, we could just start at 0, 0, 0 in the location, and yeah, because we want them to go effectively in the same shape that they're in. So we want to divide and mod of the values. Divide by 4, mod of 4. So just guessing what kind of value we need. I think it's X and Z. That should put the 4 sectors in the right place, really, once it's all loaded. So we'll drop a camera in there so we've got something to move around. So it's very dark. items should be created about there. We need to rotate that. That way. So it will be added in that direction and the blue direction. So we have 4 sectors, which is not what we'd expect. We have a number of cameras, none of which are actually working, or working very well. Let's remove those. In one of those. Okay, so we're kind of side on to it. Maybe we have 4 because they're on different players. That should be fine then. Sometimes opening the output log, having ran the editor for a while, causes problems. And I think that's what's happened here. Okay, that might be it. Let's clear the log. Okay, so let's run it again. It still says the client is loading them, so the thing that we did forget was that all of this logic should only be done on the host. Yes, so the sector epoch, it says that it's none in the logs. That's because it's not replicated over, I don't think, by the time the text is done, so we'll just ignore that. So the thing we need to do now is possess one of them based on the start location. So once we've created all of them, we want to find the one with the start location of the player. And we want to set the right type, but we'll do the player part first. Where is it? I'll just call it location. Its location isn't necessarily the best item because it uses location internally. So if we find the right place, we want to, can we not possess it? No, maybe it's the player controller. For the first player, we want to possess that. So this isn't working because that's the server. Yeah, so we need to do the possession on the let's just check that that works on here. Yeah, I thought so. So actually possessing the first one, that's the second one. It should be the other way around actually, so maybe I've done them the wrong way around. That's better. And X should be negative. Nope. Z should be negative. Right one. Yeah, 6 is the top one, 10 is the bottom one. So from that, once we've successfully set all of them, or created all the actors, all on the server, we do need to possess the right actor, but obviously the server has to possess it, but for the given player. The player controller doesn't exist at the time that the possession is called, because the player hasn't joined at the time all of this is done. So that's in the mode, I think. post login. Back to the game. Game mode. Yep. So within the game mode, we have to create an event on player join. We had this before, and I'll have that, and it will have the player controller that we're using for this game mode once we've created one. But for now, we can use the generic player controller. So it just triggers the event. We'll have the game. Oh, too far. Over here. So all of that. We don't want that one. We do want that one. Let's keep that joined up. All of that is basically spawning did not like that. Okay, take some more. See if that will work. Yeah. In a manner of fashion. So they should all be the same pin. That'll be fine. Bit spread out there. Okay, so that sorts out the function that will be the spawn sector core. We do want a return from it though. To do that there. Cleans up all that. Now once all the spawns have been done, we would potentially want to bind to the event, but we probably should bind to the player joined event quite early on. Cast that first. put this back into dedicated mode so we can get this working. So gonna try having this count and the reasoning is that we can use this count to determine whether the clients have received all of the sectors yet. And until they receive all of the sectors, then we won't do anything in the level. Because this will be replicated to all of the clients. Not really sure if that will work because it's like get the value and then check it. We'll see. Server says okay. Look like the client is calling that until after the server's done. Wonder if that's intentional. No. This setup process is always such a pain. What we can maybe do is do this loop here instead. Not that one. That's almost true, but it does work. So now we can go call client ready. Run on server. I think we'd probably want the play controller. Pass through. Then we should be able to reliably possess the pawn that we want to possess. It doesn't seem to like that. Owning connection for actor C33. Let's take that out, see if that stops the error. See how long this takes. Yeah, so the client does print that nope up once at least before it says okay, so one iteration. Although that's going to be true, isn't it? It's always going to be true. Yeah, okay, so the actors already exist. At this point the actors already exist. So when a player joins, so it's a bit flickery. I think it's flickery because it doesn't know quite where we're starting. It's a bit that I was trying to avoid. Probably flickery actually because the start play controller when we start we get defaulted a camera. So now it shouldn't possess it at all. Now it's flickery. Still flickery. No change there. Yeah, so it's just because we're trying to possess a pawn that isn't there to start with, I think. I basically had a similar problem with the previous one. So we had a function before to get the type, sector type. So I just want to find that. Thought it was in one of the library classes. Maybe it's in the UI minimap 1 map. Not that one, so it could be in this one. This one certainly does it correctly, so So how do we figure out what the sector type is? There. And where's that? Function library. Oops. Did not mean to do that. Okay, so that's fine. Function library. It's going to take a few minutes for this to open and close again. Just go away. Takes an array of sectors. But it's a sector structures in this case. Yeah, so I think this one is fine, but if I did it instead with an array of locations, I wouldn't have to keep changing it if I kept changing my mind on what exactly is being used. So if we go back over here, we can iterate over all the sectors. For each of those we can get the location. Yeah, but to do that we'd have to... never mind. Do it that way instead. That will at least work with what we've got. I think there was a way that I thought about making this more efficient. I can't remember what it was now. So I was hoping that that was going to make this work and display correctly. But none of the components replicate, so I think they all need to replicate in the slab. Just replicate it all the way up. Oops. It might have been because it was trying to open Visual Studio, or still thinking that it was trying to open Visual Studio. open them all. Yeah, so it hasn't saved a bunch of stuff. It's rather annoying. Especially since it didn't appear to work. Works now. So we'll have to ensure that all of the parts are replicated again. See if that works. Nope. So we should at least see some errors or otherwise in the logs. Which we do. The server seems to create them okay. So the slab is correctly rendered, or replicated even. All of the card components should be. Seeing if the single player scenario will work. It's not really how it's meant to look. can't even see why it works that way, or obviously doesn't work. The information does say that it specifies the right sector type. That's just all over the place. I think just certain parts of it are in the wrong place. So that works for the top one. I think it's probably just because I haven't actually rendered this properly for some time. Don't even know where they are. So the top's clearly wrong. Yeah, okay. I don't know what's going on with that. I copied it from the original one. Clearly I've either copied it wrong or it's been copied wrong, and it's all a bit of a mess. I've got the sector old, which has all the original parts. Render sector type. Yeah, so this one seems like it would work better. Yeah, the logic on and the layout on this one is correct, but it's actually an actor itself, whereas the slab, I suppose, is an actor too. So I may be able to just replace it with the sector. Take out some of the logic, tie it back up again. But I do have to figure out how to make it set it nicer, I think. Because having to kind of do all this after the fact is just a bit awkward. Yeah, I think finding the locations is nice enough, but if it worked actually on a location array instead of the sectors itself effectively, then maybe I could spawn the actors with the right type and I wouldn't have to worry about the replication so much. So I think that's one of the problems here. Because ignoring the fact that the sectors look wrong, in the single player version it's working okay, but under the dedicated server it doesn't work at all. And that's obviously got something to do with the replication. Or the lack of replication. Oh, okay, now it's working. So maybe it was just the same problem then. Maybe it's just the same problem. But there's still the flicker. I don't know how to fix the flicker either. Trying to get those sectors to render. I mean, it's the same problem I had in the earlier iterations. Could get the server to create them okay, but then knowing when you can possess them and possessing them without the flicker seems to be quite difficult. So I have to see if I can find out what that might be. Anyway, on that note, I think I'm going to stop for the evening. As usual, didn't make as much progress I was hoping in terms of getting the level up and running again. But hopefully later on in the week will be more productive. I may be able to stream again tomorrow, so hopefully then. So thanks for watching and good night for now. Thanks again.